And once we have added both of the buttons, as well as added the functions, one for login and one for logout, now I would want to hop over to bigger screen and actually take it for a test drive. So let's navigate there. We have copy, slot, starter, and notice on a big screen, of course, we can see both buttons and check out the console. Over here, we have a user, which of course is undefined. Then we have is authenticated, which is false, and then is loading is true. So now, of course, what I would want is to click on a login, and you can pick whichever option you would want, but I'm going to start with a social connections. So we click, notice for the first time, essentially there's going to be a pop-up screen, but once we're done with that, of course, initially our user was undefined and false, and now we can see that we have successfully logged in. Since our user is an object here, and then we have is authenticated equal to true. And then, of course, we also have is loading back to false. Now, I also want to tell you that in this application, essentially, we won't use that user data. So if you were working on a previous application on the GitHub one, you remember that we used the email as well as I believe it was not a favicon, but essentially that little icon that comes back from the user. In this case, we won't do that. I simply want to check whether the user exists. So if I have anything but undefined, we are in good shape. So this is what we should see. And now what I would want is back in the user context, once this changes from false to true, so essentially once I'm authenticated, now, of course, I would want to pass in that data. So I would want to set up my user. And the way we're going to do that is simply by setting up, of course, our logic in the use effect. So if this changes, then of course we will reinvoke it. And now instead of these console logs, I'm just going to say, you know what? If that is the case, if is authenticated is true, then I'm going to go to set my user, and I'll set it equal to whatever user I'm getting from the Auth0. Now I do want to add else though, because also remember that, of course, we will log out, correct? If the user logs out, then I don't want to keep my user as that object or whatever I'm passing in over here. Instead, what I would want is go back to set my user and set it equal to false. So initially, of course, this is going to be false. However, it will run when the component mounts, correct? And then, of course, we'll check what is the value. Initially, that value will be false. So we will kind of reset it back to null, since that's our default value. But then once we authenticate the user, then of course this will be true. However, it will rerun because this value will change. So our use effect depends on that value. And then we'll set this user equal to the user, whatever we're getting back. And once I have this one in place, now I would want to go back to the card buttons and set up the condition where if I'm logged in, then show me the logout link. If I'm logged out, then of course, show me the login link. I think that would make a bit more sense. And I can check that by just looking at the user. Remember, user was either false or can have it here as a value. So now I'm going to say if the user exists, essentially, then of course, I'll show the logout link. So let's go above the first button, and we're already getting that value, of course, from my user context. I'll say if the user, so if the user will be undefined, then of course we'll go to the second condition. However, if it is true, well, then we would want to show the logout, correct? So this is going to be the case where if this is true, then we would want to show the logout option like so. So that's why we'll display here the button. Or if it is false, then of course we'll display the login button. So copy and paste. Now we have our condition. And then since we have logged in, of course, we should see only the logout one, correct? because we just logged in. However, once I click on a logout, notice we'll flip. And now, of course, we have a login option. Now, I think I can close the console. I think it's not necessary. And I would want to try the email setup as well. So we tried Google, or let's maybe quickly try Twitter as well. Again, for the first time, you'll have to go through the pop-up, and then I'll log out again, and I'll try to log in with a email instead. So in this case, I think I'm going to go with my peter@mail.com. Let me make sure that I remember the password correctly, so there's no weird bugs. And hopefully that worked. And there it is. Now, of course, I also logged in with a email and password. And last thing that I would like to mention in this video is the fact that if you navigate to application, essentially to your local storage, you'll also see that every time we log in, whether that is with Google, Twitter, or whatever, you also have a key value pair in your local storage. So that's something that we took care of when we set up our index. Remember, we had cache location and equal to local storage. And there's also one thing that I forgot in the initial video when we were setting up the Auth0. I promised you that when we're setting up the application, I'll also show you what happens when we push this application to production. So right now I would want to go to applications, and then I'll show you the testing one since that one is already in the production. And remember, when it comes to these application URIs, for example, callback URLs, we would every time need to add the URL if that application is already hosted somewhere. So for example, at this point in our application, we only have this localhost 3000. But then eventually when you push this to production, make sure you grab the URL. And again, make sure you don't add that trailing /, and then you just need to add a comma. And again, you need to do that in 3 places. Make sure you save and you'll be in good shape. So at the moment, we only have this localhost in our application. But then once you push to production, make sure to come back to Auth0 and add the URL for your app, add a comma, make sure there's no /, and you'll be in good shape.